Have you ever wondered why some people seem to attract success like a magnet, while others struggle, year after year, doing everything right? What if I told you that the secret isn't talent, luck, or even hard work, but a mindset? A mindset that the rich and successful have mastered for centuries. And it all starts with two simple words: think big. Start small. Thinking big is more than dreaming. It's daring to see possibilities that others can't even imagine. Think of Elon Musk. When most people saw the auto industry as set in stone, he imagined electric cars. When people thought space travel was for governments, he saw commercial rockets. Thinking big means giving yourself permission to dream beyond your current reality. But here's the catch: dreaming big alone isn't enough. Many dreamers never take off because they are paralyzed by the enormity of their vision. That's where starting small comes in. The richest people in the world didn't start at the top. They started with small, consistent steps. Warren Buffett didn't buy billions of dollars in stocks at first. He bought a single stock at 11 years old. Amazon didn't begin as the trillion-dollar empire it is today. It was a small online bookstore in a garage. Success isn't about giant leaps. It's about tiny, focused actions that compound over time. Imagine planting a tree. You don't start by expecting a giant oak tomorrow. You plant a seed. You water it. You nurture it. And one day, that seed grows into a magnificent tree that can weather storms, provide shade, and bear fruit. Here's the Florence Scovel Shinn secret. The universe responds to clarity. When you clearly see your big vision, and you pair it with small, daily actions, the world starts aligning in your favor. Ask yourself, what one small step can I take today that moves me closer to my big dream? It could be learning a new skill, reaching out to a mentor, or saving a tiny amount of money. Tiny steps are powerful because they build momentum, and momentum is invisible magic that fuels success. Of course, fear will try to stop you. Doubt will whisper, "You're not ready." But remember, the rich don't let fear dictate their steps. They start small even when scared. Thomas Edison didn't invent the light bulb overnight. Thousands of failures taught him one truth: each no was just a step closer to the yes. What if you approached your own challenges that way? What if each small action, no matter how insignificant it feels, is actually paving the path to your big dream? So today, I challenge you, think bigger than you ever dared. See beyond the limits society or your own mind has set. Then, start small. Tiny steps, every day, with relentless consistency. Remember, the richest secret of all isn't money, it's the habit of combining vision with action. Think big. Start small. And watch the magic unfold. Your journey starts today. Will you take the first step? Following are the key points you will listen in this video. Dream boldly. Thinking big opens doors that ordinary visions can't. Start small. Success compounds from tiny, consistent actions. Momentum matters. Small steps build unstoppable energy over time. Daily clarity. Clearly defined goals attract opportunities and resources. Embrace failure. Each setback is a stepping stone, not a dead end. Action conquers fear. Courage is taking small steps even when scared. Have you ever noticed how some people see the world differently, almost as if they are looking through a window into the future while the rest of us are staring at the walls around us? That's the magic of thinking big, the ability to imagine possibilities so vast that they almost feel impossible. It's not about daydreaming while life passes you by, it's about daring to envision a life that most people wouldn't even allow themselves to imagine. Picture a young boy in South Africa, sitting on the steps of a small, crowded home, staring at the night sky. He doesn't just see stars. He sees destinations, possibilities, journeys that have never been taken. That boy grows up to create rockets that leave Earth itself. He's not special because he's smarter than everyone else. He's special because he allowed himself to think beyond the limits everyone else accepted. He dreamed big. Thinking big starts with asking yourself questions that scare you. Questions like, what if I could create something that changes millions of lives? Or what if I could live a life so extraordinary that it inspires others to dream bigger than they ever thought possible? When most people settle for a safe answer, the rich and successful refuse to stay small. They lean into the questions that seem ridiculous, unattainable, or even impossible. They imagine solutions, products, and futures that feel uncomfortable at first, because discomfort is a signal that they are touching something transformative. Imagine standing in a crowded room where everyone is talking about what's likely or realistic. Then imagine one person, quietly, confidently sketching an idea that no one else sees yet. That's the moment thinking big begins. It's the quiet rebellion against limits. Consider the story of J.K. Rowling, sitting in a tiny cafe, watching rain trickle down the window, a single mother with barely enough money to pay the rent. She didn't have a mansion, a team of editors, or even a clear path to success. She had a story in her mind about a boy who could do magic. But she didn't just imagine a little story. She imagined a world so detailed, so rich, and so alive that it demanded to exist outside her mind. People might have told her to focus on realistic pursuits, but she saw a possibility that others ignored. She thought big, and that thought alone eventually became a global phenomenon that transformed lives. Thinking big often starts in moments of struggle, when the ordinary options feel insufficient, and the mind reaches for extraordinary solutions. Thinking big is not just imagining riches, fame, or power. It is imagining impact. It is imagining a life where your actions ripple beyond your immediate circumstances, where your ideas can ignite change in others. Imagine the young Steve Jobs in a small garage, not just building a computer, but dreaming of a future where technology would fit seamlessly into people's lives, where devices would be intuitive, beautiful, and personal. He didn't see a product, he saw an experience. He didn't settle for the limitations of the technology available at the time. He imagined a world that had never existed and then began to pull it into reality. The difference between him and someone who never tries is not intelligence, it is the audacity to envision what others cannot yet see. The mind of someone who thinks big operates like a telescope turned toward the stars. It focuses not on the obstacles in front of them, but on the possibilities far beyond. The challenges are there, yes, but they are secondary. When you allow yourself to dream big, obstacles become puzzles, problems become fuel, and the world becomes a playground of opportunity rather than a cage of limitations. Imagine walking down a crowded street, seeing nothing but ordinary shops and dull signs. Now imagine walking the same street but noticing opportunities for cafes, bookstores, or spaces that could serve your community in ways no one else has imagined. Thinking big trains your mind to look for the extraordinary in the ordinary, to see potential where others see the status quo. Think of Florence Scovel Shinn's words, which remind us that your thoughts are seeds. Your word is your wand, she wrote. Every thought of greatness, every vision you allow to take root, is a seed planted in the soil of your subconscious. Some people plant weeds by doubting themselves. Others plant mighty oaks by daring to dream and insisting that the dream deserves life. The moment you decide to think big, you are choosing to plant an oak, a tree that might grow slowly, but will one day provide shade, fruit, and shelter for countless others. It begins as a thought, invisible, fragile, and easy to dismiss, but that is precisely why it is so powerful. Think big also requires courage. It requires imagining success that terrifies you and persisting when others shake their heads. Imagine a woman in a small apartment, looking at her hands as if they are too ordinary to create anything extraordinary. She dreams of writing a novel, starting a business, or launching an invention. Every fiber of her being whispers that she's not enough, but she imagines anyway. She sketches a plan, writes a paragraph, makes a call. That small act of thinking beyond her immediate circumstances sets into motion a chain of events that the world may one day recognize. Big thinking doesn't mean reckless optimism. It means daring to start with your imagination, believing that the mind has a way of creating reality if given focus, courage, and persistence. Even in business, history is full of examples. Take Airbnb. The founders didn't start by imagining a billion-dollar company. They started with a tiny idea, renting out an air mattress in their living room. But the seed of a bigger vision was always there, a world where anyone could feel at home anywhere. That audacious vision guided every small decision, every iteration, and every risk they took. Without the ability to think big, that seed would have remained an ordinary room for rent, invisible to the world. Thinking big is contagious. When you allow yourself to dream beyond what feels safe, you inspire those around you. People are drawn to visionaries because they sense possibility. Imagine a teacher who sees a struggling student not as someone likely to fail, but as a future innovator, artist, or leader. That vision changes how the teacher teaches, how the student sees themselves, and sometimes even the trajectory of their life. When you think big, you don't just change your life, you ripple change outward. And the beauty of thinking big is that it grows. One bold thought leads to another. One audacious dream sparks a string of visions. When you dare to imagine a life beyond the ordinary, you are opening a door to endless opportunities. The first step is not building a skyscraper or launching a global empire. It's allowing your mind to wander into possibilities that scare and excite you in equal measure. It's whispering to yourself, what if I could? What if I dared? And then it's holding that thought with conviction, letting it grow in the quiet corners of your imagination until it demands action. Thinking big is the foundation. It's the spark that lights the fire. It's seeing beyond today's limits to tomorrow's possibilities. It's daring to ask questions that others avoid, imagining answers that others dismiss, and planting seeds that others would never see. It begins in your mind, often in the quietest moments, in cafes, in bedrooms, in garages, in stolen moments when the world believes you are doing ordinary things. But inside, you are sketching the blueprint of extraordinary. Every visionary, every innovator, every person who changed the world started here, thinking big, daring to imagine, refusing to settle for anything less than what could be. Imagine standing at the base of a mountain so high that its peak disappears into the clouds. The summit seems impossible to reach, an intimidating wall that blocks your vision. Most people look at it and turn away, thinking, I'm not ready. It's too much. But the truth is, every great achievement begins at the bottom, with a single, deliberate step. That's the essence of starting small. The big dream, the mountain you see, is the destination, but the journey begins with one tiny, courageous move. Think about Jeff Bezos in his garage, surrounded by boxes of books, a second-hand computer, and a barely there business plan. Amazon today feels enormous, unstoppable, a force that touches billions of lives. But it didn't start with a headquarters, a fleet of trucks, or millions in funding. It started with one book sale, a single order shipped with care. Each small, painstaking action was a brick in the foundation of a colossal vision. Bezos didn't leap to the summit. He climbed, step by step, learning with every stumble, adjusting his footing, and trusting the process. Starting small is not a compromise, it's strategy. It's the secret that separates dreamers who remain stuck from doers who create legacies. It's easy to think that progress must be dramatic, immediate, and visible, but real growth is often invisible. Think of a tiny stream cutting through rock over decades. Day after day, drip by drip, the water shapes the stone, carving paths where none existed before. One small act repeated consistently, compounded over time, has the power to reshape your world. Consider a young musician, sitting in a dimly lit room, strumming chords on an old guitar. The dream of performing on the world's biggest stages feels almost ridiculous, almost unattainable. But instead of quitting, they start small, learning one song perfectly, performing at open mic nights, posting a video online. Each tiny step teaches them, grows their confidence, and builds momentum. Eventually, those small steps accumulate, and suddenly, the dream that once felt like a distant star becomes a reality they can reach. Starting small also removes the paralysis that comes from fear. Often, when a goal is massive, the mind resists. The sheer size of it can make us freeze, thinking, I can't do this. I'm not ready. But the rich and successful know that starting small is like whispering to fear, I see you, and I'm moving anyway. They chip away at doubt by acting, even when the steps seem insignificant. Every action, no matter how small, is a victory over hesitation. Every tiny win strengthens belief in the bigger vision. Look at the story of Sarah Blakely, the founder of Spanx. She didn't have a billion-dollar fortune, investors lined up, or a team of experts. She had an idea, a lot of determination, and very little money. She started by cutting the feet off her pantyhose, testing prototypes in her apartment, and showing them to friends. It was small, humble work, invisible to the world. But it was consistent, intentional, and focused. Each small success brought her closer to a brand that now spans continents. The mountain she climbed was enormous, but she conquered it one step at a time. Even in personal growth, starting small makes the difference. If you want to get healthy, you don't run a marathon on the first day. You start with a walk around the block, a single healthy meal, or a 5-minute meditation. Those small actions, repeated daily, build habits. And habits, like seeds, grow roots deep enough to sustain change long-term. What feels tiny today becomes unstoppable tomorrow. Momentum is the hidden magic of starting small. Picture a snowball rolling down a hill, beginning as a tiny ball in your hand. At first, it barely moves, but as it rolls, it gathers snow, weight, and speed. Soon, it becomes a force that no one can stop. That's what consistent small steps do. They accumulate energy, shape your path, and propel you forward. Even setbacks lose power when momentum carries you. You stumble, you adjust, you keep rolling. Eventually, you find that the mountain doesn't feel quite as impossible as it once did. Starting small also allows for learning without catastrophic failure. Every tiny step is an experiment, a way to gather insight and refine your approach. Imagine trying to build a spaceship by throwing together parts all at once. You'd crash before takeoff. But if you test a small engine, then a small wing, then a small model, you learn, adapt, and improve. The same principle applies to business, relationships, creative pursuits, and personal goals. Small actions are lessons disguised as progress. Think of the story of Airbnb. The founders didn't start with a hotel chain or a massive investment. They began by renting out air mattresses in their apartment to 3 guests. Tiny, humble, almost laughable. But each small step, each positive experience, taught them about customer needs, operations, and growth. Those early, small moves were the invisible scaffolding of the empire they would eventually build. Without starting small, the dream would have remained a distant fantasy. Starting small also teaches patience and discipline. In a world that glorifies instant gratification, the ability to chip away at a goal slowly is rare. It's easy to look at someone else's success and feel discouraged. But what we don't see is the countless tiny steps, the early mornings, the late nights, the small risks, the minor victories that pile up silently over time. Every expert was once a beginner taking their first small, often awkward, step. Every success story is a collection of those seemingly insignificant moments that added up, day after day, into something extraordinary. Even in relationships, starting small makes profound differences. A conversation, a thoughtful message, a small act of kindness, these are the building blocks of trust, connection, and love. No one builds a lifelong bond with a single grand gesture. Bonds are strengthened moment by moment, choice by choice, small step by small step. The principle is universal. Progress, growth, and transformation happen incrementally. Starting small does not mean thinking small. It means respecting the process, honoring the journey, and trusting that every action, no matter how minor it seems, is a ripple that can turn into a wave. It is the bridge between dreams and reality, the quiet engine that carries audacious visions into the tangible world. Each step is a vote for your own potential, a declaration that your dreams are worth the effort, and a promise that you will not be paralyzed by the enormity of your goals. And so, when you feel overwhelmed by the mountain before you, when the peak seems impossibly high, remember, the journey starts with one small, intentional step. Water the seed, move the rock, write the paragraph, make the call, take the walk. Let the momentum build. Let the snowball roll. Let the invisible magic of small, consistent action carry you toward a future that once lived only in your imagination. Fear is the quiet whisper that tells you to stop, to stay small, to settle for what's safe. It creeps in when your dreams are big, when your vision stretches beyond what feels familiar, when the mountain ahead seems too high to climb. Everyone experiences it. The question is not whether fear will appear, it's whether you will let it control you. Imagine a young artist staring at a blank canvas, paintbrush in hand, heart pounding. The vision in their mind is vivid, magnificent, yet their hands tremble. What if it doesn't work? What if the world rejects it? That tremble, that hesitation, is fear. And in that moment, the difference between a dream that stays in the mind and a dream that becomes reality is courage. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is action despite fear. Think of Thomas Edison. He tried thousands of ways to create the light bulb, each attempt failing, each one seemingly proof that the dream was impossible. Yet he persisted. "I have not failed," he said. "I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." Every failed experiment was a conversation with fear, a refusal to let doubt dictate his path. Every small success, every tiny spark of progress, was the reward for acting despite the trembling in his heart. Courage is not grandiose. It is persistent, quiet, and often invisible. Fear feeds on exaggeration. It makes problems look insurmountable, setbacks appear permanent, and the mountain ahead impossible to climb. But when you start, when you take that first small step, fear loses power. Picture a tightrope stretched high above the ground. The first step is terrifying. The wind sways, the height dizzying, the risk real. But the moment your foot lands, the balance shifts. Each subsequent step becomes easier. Momentum, courage, and confidence grow together. Starting small is the antidote to fear because action always reduces the unknown. You can't be paralyzed when you're moving. Consider the story of a young entrepreneur sitting in their tiny apartment with barely enough money to pay the bills. They have an idea, something revolutionary, but the fear is loud. What if I fail? What if people laugh? What if I lose everything? Most would put the idea aside, but they choose a different path. They start small, making a prototype, testing it with friends, learning from feedback. Each small step is a victory over fear. Each minor success whispers, "You can do this." Soon, the fear that once seemed overwhelming is no longer a wall but a stepping stone. Doubt is often disguised as logic. "You're not ready," it says. "You need more experience. You need more money. You need more connections." But the truth is, there is no perfect moment. The rich and successful have learned that waiting for certainty is waiting forever. They start with what they have, with what they know, and with the courage to learn as they go. They embrace the imperfect first step because it is the only step that brings them closer to the dream. Imagine a writer who never publishes a first draft because it isn't perfect. That draft, imperfect as it may be, is the bridge to mastery. Without it, nothing else is possible. Fear and doubt also teaches. They force you to clarify your vision, to prioritize, and to examine your motivation. Ask yourself, why do I want this? Who will benefit? What will happen if I don't try? These questions turn fear from a barrier into a compass, guiding your actions and strengthening your resolve. Every successful person has faced fear. Every innovator, every leader, every creator has felt the trembling of doubt. The difference is that they acted anyway. They leaned into discomfort, knowing that growth always lies on the other side of fear. Look at Malala Yousafzai, sitting in a classroom in Pakistan, facing threats from forces that wanted to silence her. She could have cowered, she could have hidden, she could have stayed small. But she acted, despite fear, because the vision of education for every child was bigger than the fear that surrounded her. Every speech, every article, every brave step forward was a declaration that courage outweighs doubt. When you act in the presence of fear, you not only move toward your dream, you inspire others to do the same. Fear thrives on exaggeration, but action shrinks it. Think of a swimmer standing at the edge of a cold, churning river. The current looks impossible, the water icy, the path treacherous. Their mind screams to step back, but they dive in anyway. The water is shocking at first, uncomfortable, even painful. But with each stroke, they learn the rhythm, they find the current, they move forward. By the time they reach the other side, the fear that once seemed monstrous is a memory, and the triumph becomes a new standard. Courage is built stroke by stroke, step by step, action by action. Even in everyday life, courage transforms the ordinary into extraordinary. A person who speaks up in a meeting, risking judgment, may spark an idea that changes a company. A parent who confronts a difficult conversation may heal a relationship that was fraying. A student who presents a bold project may open doors that seemed closed. Fear will always whisper, but action, the courage to start, is the force that transforms whispers into echoes of success. Starting small doesn't diminish courage, it amplifies it. Each small act is proof to your own mind that you are capable. Each minor victory becomes a building block, reinforcing confidence, reinforcing the belief that bigger steps are possible. Courage grows like a muscle. You exercise it with every tiny step, and soon, you find yourself capable of feats that once terrified you. Even when the stakes are high, the foundation of small, brave actions carries you forward. And here's the beautiful irony. Fear is often strongest when you are closest to a breakthrough. The mountain looks tallest just before the summit. The resistance feels heaviest when the goal is within reach. This is why starting small matters. It allows you to build resilience and momentum while fear is still loud. By the time the dream is tangible, the courage cultivated through small actions carries you through the hardest moments. Fear no longer paralyzes. It motivates, sharpens, and guides. The rich, the successful, the people who leave legacies, none of them are fearless. They feel doubt. They face uncertainty. They stare at impossible challenges. But they act anyway. They start small, they move forward, and they trust the process. And in doing so, fear loses its power, doubt becomes irrelevant, and the mountain they once feared becomes the stage for their triumph. Have you ever noticed how some people seem to attract success like a magnet while the rest of us struggle, year after year, doing everything right? What if I told you that the secret isn't talent, luck, or even hard work, but a mindset? A mindset that the rich and successful have mastered for centuries. And it all starts with two simple words: think big. Start small. Have you ever noticed how some people see the world differently, almost as if they are looking through a window into the future while the rest of us are staring at the walls around us? That's the magic of thinking big, the ability to imagine possibilities so vast that they almost feel impossible. It's not about daydreaming while life passes you by, it's about daring to envision a life that most people wouldn't even allow themselves to imagine. Picture a young boy in South Africa, sitting on the steps of a small, crowded home, staring at the night sky. He doesn't just see stars. He sees destinations, possibilities, journeys that have never been taken. That boy grows up to create rockets that leave Earth itself. He's not special because he's smarter than everyone else. He's special because he allowed himself to think beyond the limits everyone else accepted. He dreamed big. Thinking big starts with asking yourself questions that scare you. Questions like, what if I could create something that changes millions of lives? Or what if I could live a life so extraordinary that it inspires others to dream bigger than they ever thought possible? When most people settle for a safe answer, the rich and successful refuse to stay small. They lean into the questions that seem ridiculous, unattainable, or even impossible. They imagine solutions, products, and futures that feel uncomfortable at first, because discomfort is a signal that they are touching something transformative. Imagine standing in a crowded room where everyone is talking about what's likely or realistic. Then imagine one person, quietly, confidently sketching an idea that no one else sees yet. That's the moment thinking big begins. It's the quiet rebellion against limits. Consider the story of J.K. Rowling, sitting in a tiny cafe, watching rain trickle down the window, a single mother with barely enough money to pay the rent. She didn't have a mansion, a team of editors, or even a clear path to success. She had a story in her mind about a boy who could do magic. But she didn't just imagine a little story. She imagined a world so detailed, so rich, and so alive that it demanded to exist outside her mind. People might have told her to focus on realistic pursuits, but she saw a possibility that others ignored. She thought big, and that thought alone eventually became a global phenomenon that transformed lives. Thinking big often starts in moments of struggle, when the ordinary options feel insufficient, and the mind reaches for extraordinary solutions. Thinking big is not just imagining riches, fame, or power. It is imagining impact. It is imagining a life where your actions ripple beyond your immediate circumstances, where your ideas can ignite change in others. Imagine the young Steve Jobs in a small garage, not just building a computer, but dreaming of a future where technology would fit seamlessly into people's lives, where devices would be intuitive, beautiful, and personal. He didn't see a product, he saw an experience. He didn't settle for the limitations of the technology available at the time. He imagined a world that had never existed and then began to pull it into reality. The difference between him and someone who never tries is not intelligence, it is the audacity to envision what others cannot yet see. The mind of someone who thinks big operates like a telescope turned toward the stars. It focuses not on the obstacles in front of them, but on the possibilities far beyond. The challenges are there, yes, but they are secondary. When you allow yourself to dream big, obstacles become puzzles, problems become fuel, and the world becomes a playground of opportunity rather than a cage of limitations. Imagine walking down a crowded street, seeing nothing but ordinary shops and dull signs. Now imagine walking the same street but noticing opportunities for cafes, bookstores, or spaces that could serve your community in ways no one else has imagined. Thinking big trains your mind to look for the extraordinary in the ordinary, to see potential where others see the status quo. Think of Florence Scovel Shinn's words, which remind us that your thoughts are seeds. Your word is your wand, she wrote. Every thought of greatness, every vision you allow to take root, is a seed planted in the soil of your subconscious. Some people plant weeds by doubting themselves. Others plant mighty oaks by daring to dream and insisting that the dream deserves life. The moment you decide to think big, you are choosing to plant an oak, a tree that might grow slowly, but will one day provide shade, fruit, and shelter for countless others. It begins as a thought, invisible, fragile, and easy to dismiss, but that is precisely why it is so powerful. Think big also requires courage. It requires imagining success that terrifies you and persisting when others shake their heads. Imagine a woman in a small apartment, looking at her hands as if they are too ordinary to create anything extraordinary. She dreams of writing a novel, starting a business, or launching an invention. Every fiber of her being whispers that she's not enough, but she imagines anyway. She sketches a plan, writes a paragraph, makes a call. That small act of thinking beyond her immediate circumstances sets into motion a chain of events that the world may one day recognize. Big thinking doesn't mean reckless optimism. It means daring to start with your imagination, believing that the mind has a way of creating reality if given focus, courage, and persistence. Even in business, history is full of examples. Take Airbnb. The founders didn't start by imagining a billion-dollar company. They started with a tiny idea, renting out an air mattress in their living room. But the seed of a bigger vision was always there, a world where anyone could feel at home anywhere. That audacious vision guided every small decision, every iteration, and every risk they took. Without the ability to think big, that seed would have remained an ordinary room for rent, invisible to the world. Thinking big is contagious. When you allow yourself to dream beyond what feels safe, you inspire those around you. People are drawn to visionaries because they sense possibility. Imagine a teacher who sees a struggling student not as someone likely to fail, but as a future innovator, artist, or leader. That vision changes how the teacher teaches, how the student sees themselves, and sometimes even the trajectory of their life. When you think big, you don't just change your life, you ripple change outward. And the beauty of thinking big is that it grows. One bold thought leads to another. One audacious dream sparks a string of visions. When you dare to imagine a life beyond the ordinary, you are opening a door to endless opportunities. The first step is not building a skyscraper or launching a global empire. It's allowing your mind to wander into possibilities that scare and excite you in equal measure. It's whispering to yourself, "What if I could? What if I dared?" And then it's holding that thought with conviction, letting it grow in the quiet corners of your imagination until it demands action. Imagine standing at the base of a mountain so high that its peak disappears into the clouds. The summit seems impossible to reach, an intimidating wall that blocks your vision. Most people look at it and turn away, thinking, "I'm not ready. It's too much." But the truth is, every great achievement begins at the bottom, with a single, deliberate step. That's the essence of starting small. The big dream, the mountain you see, is the destination, but the journey begins with one tiny, courageous move. Think about Jeff Bezos in his garage, surrounded by boxes of books, a second-hand computer, and a barely-there business plan. Amazon today feels enormous, unstoppable, a force that touches billions of lives. But it didn't start with a headquarters, a fleet of trucks, or millions in funding. It started with one book sale, a single order shipped with care. Each small, painstaking action was a brick in the foundation of a colossal vision. Bezos didn't leap to the summit. He climbed, step by step, learning with every stumble, adjusting his footing, and trusting the process. Starting small is not a compromise, it's strategy. It's the secret that separates dreamers who remain stuck from doers who create legacies. It's easy to think that progress must be dramatic, immediate, and visible, but real growth is often invisible. Think of a tiny stream cutting through rock over decades. Day after day, drip by drip, the water shapes the stone, carving paths where none existed before. One small act repeated consistently, compounded over time, has the power to reshape your world. Consider a young musician, sitting in a dimly lit room, strumming chords on an old guitar. The dream of performing on the world's biggest stages feels almost ridiculous, almost unattainable. But instead of quitting, they start small, learning one song perfectly, performing at open mic nights, posting a video online. Each tiny step teaches them, grows their confidence, and builds momentum. Eventually, those small steps accumulate, and suddenly, the dream that once felt like a distant star becomes a reality they can reach. Starting small also removes the paralysis that comes from fear. Often, when a goal is massive, the mind resists. The sheer size of it can make us freeze, thinking, "I can't do this. I'm not ready." But the rich and successful know that starting small is like whispering to fear, "I see you, and I'm moving anyway." They chip away at doubt by acting, even when the steps seem insignificant. Every action, no matter how small, is a victory over hesitation. Every tiny win strengthens belief in the bigger vision. Look at the story of Sarah Blakely, the founder of Spanx. She didn't have a billion-dollar fortune, investors lined up, or a team of experts. She had an idea, a lot of determination, and very little money. She started by cutting the feet off her pantyhose, testing prototypes in her apartment, and showing them to friends. It was small, humble work, invisible to the world. But it was consistent, intentional, and focused. Each small success brought her closer to a brand that now spans continents. The mountain she climbed was enormous, but she conquered it one step at a time. Even in personal growth, starting small makes the difference. If you want to get healthy, you don't run a marathon on the first day. You start with a walk around the block, a single healthy meal, or a 5-minute meditation. Those small actions, repeated daily, build habits. And habits, like seeds, grow roots deep enough to sustain change long-term. What feels tiny today becomes unstoppable tomorrow. Momentum is the hidden magic of starting small. Picture a snowball rolling down a hill, beginning as a tiny ball in your hand. At first, it barely moves, but as it rolls, it gathers snow, weight, and speed. Soon, it becomes a force that no one can stop. That's what consistent small steps do. They accumulate energy, shape your path, and propel you forward. Even setbacks lose power when momentum carries you. You stumble, you adjust, you keep rolling. Eventually, you find that the mountain doesn't feel quite as impossible as it once did. Fear is the quiet whisper that tells you to stop, to stay small, to settle for what's safe. It creeps in when your dreams are big, when your vision stretches beyond what feels familiar, when the mountain ahead seems too high to climb. Everyone experiences it. The question is not whether fear will appear, it's whether you will let it control you. Imagine a young artist staring at a blank canvas, paintbrush in hand, heart pounding. The vision in their mind is vivid, magnificent, yet their hands tremble. What if it doesn't work? What if the world rejects it? That tremble, that hesitation, is fear. And in that moment, the difference between a dream that stays in the mind and a dream that becomes reality is courage. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is action despite fear. Think of Thomas Edison. He tried thousands of ways to create the light bulb, each attempt failing, each one seemingly proof that the dream was impossible. Yet he persisted. "I have not failed," he said. "I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." Every failed experiment was a conversation with fear, a refusal to let doubt dictate his path. Every small success, every tiny spark of progress, was the reward for acting despite the trembling in his heart. Courage is not grandiose. It is persistent, quiet, and often invisible. Fear feeds on exaggeration. It makes problems look insurmountable, setbacks appear permanent, and the mountain ahead impossible to climb. But when you start, when you take that first small step, fear loses power. Picture a tightrope stretched high above the ground. The first step is terrifying. The wind sways, the height dizzying, the risk real. But the moment your foot lands, the balance shifts. Each subsequent step becomes easier. Momentum, courage, and confidence grow together. Starting small is the antidote to fear because action always reduces the unknown. Consider the story of a young entrepreneur sitting in their tiny apartment with barely enough money to pay the bills. They have an idea, something revolutionary, but the fear is loud. What if I fail? What if people laugh? What if I lose everything? Most would put the idea aside. But they choose a different path. They start small, making a prototype, testing it with friends, learning from feedback. Each small step is a victory over fear. Each minor success whispers, "You can do this." Soon, the fear that once seemed overwhelming is no longer a wall but a stepping stone. Doubt is often disguised as logic. "You're not ready," it says. "You need more experience. You need more money. You need more connections." But the truth is, there's no perfect moment. The rich and successful have learned that waiting for certainty is waiting forever. They start with what they have, with what they know, and with the courage to learn as they go. They embrace the imperfect first step because it is the only step that brings them closer to the dream. Imagine a writer who never publishes a first draft because it isn't perfect. That draft, imperfect as it may be, is the bridge to mastery. Without it, nothing else is possible. Fear and doubt are also teachers. They force you to clarify your vision, to prioritize, and to examine your motivation. Ask yourself, why do I want this? Who will benefit? What will happen if I don't try? These questions turn fear from a barrier into a compass, guiding your actions and strengthening your resolve. Every successful person has faced fear. Every innovator, every leader, every creator has felt the trembling of doubt. The difference is that they acted anyway. They leaned into discomfort, knowing that growth always lies on the other side of fear. Look at Malala Yousafzai, sitting in a classroom in Pakistan, facing threats from forces that wanted to silence her. She could have cowered, she could have hidden, She could have stayed small. But she acted, despite fear, because the vision of education for every child was bigger than the fear that surrounded her. Every speech, every article, every brave step forward was a declaration that courage outweighs doubt. When you act in the presence of fear, you not only move toward your dream, you inspire others to do the same. Starting small doesn't diminish courage, it amplifies it. Each small act is proof to your own mind that you are capable. Each minor victory becomes a building block, reinforcing confidence, reinforcing the belief that bigger steps are possible. Courage grows like a muscle. You exercise it with every tiny step, and soon, you find yourself capable of feats that once terrified you. Even when the stakes are high, the foundation of small, brave actions carries you forward. And here's the beautiful irony. Fear is often strongest when you are closest to a breakthrough. The mountain looks tallest just before the summit. The resistance feels heaviest when the goal is within reach. This is why starting small matters. It allows you to build resilience and momentum while fear is still loud. By the time the dream is tangible, the courage cultivated through small actions carries you through the hardest moments. Fear no longer paralyzes. It motivates, sharpens, and guides. The rich, the successful, the people who leave legacies, none of them are fearless. They feel doubt. They face uncertainty. They stare at impossible challenges. But they act anyway. They start small, they move forward, and they trust the process. And in doing so, fear loses its power, doubt becomes irrelevant, and the mountain they once feared becomes the stage for their triumph. So today, I challenge you, think bigger than you ever dared. See beyond the limits society or your own mind has set. Then, start small. Tiny steps, every day, with relentless consistency. And when fear whispers in your ear, act anyway. Each small action, each courageous step, carries you forward toward a future that once lived only in your imagination. Think big. Start small. Act with courage. The mountain is yours to climb. So today, I ask you, will you let your dreams stay in your mind, or will you bring them to life? Will you wait for the perfect moment, or will you take the first small step now? Will you let fear hold you back, or will you act despite it? Think big. Start small. Act now. Think big. Start small. Act now. Every second you wait is a second someone else is moving forward. Every hesitation is a missed opportunity. Every doubt is a choice. Do you let it define you, or do you rise above it? The mountain is high. The journey is long. But every summit starts with a single step. Every legacy starts with a single decision. Every extraordinary life starts with a single act of courage. So I challenge you, dream bigger than you ever have before. Move sooner than you ever thought possible. Trust yourself more than you ever believed you could. And remember, what you do today echoes for the rest of your life. Think big. Start small. Act now. The world is waiting. And so is your future. Because the truth is this, the only thing standing between you and everything you've ever wanted is the choice to take that first step. Have you ever spoken something into existence and watched your entire life change? I'm not talking about a wish or a fleeting hope. I'm talking about a declaration so powerful, so simple, that the universe couldn't help but answer. The moment I said it, everything shifted. Everything. And yes, this is exactly what Florence Scovel Shinn taught us. The spoken word has power. Real power. Life-altering power. I remember sitting at my tiny kitchen table, staring at my bank account. It was meager, embarrassing even. I'd worked hard. I'd done everything right. Yet, success, real success, felt miles away. Then one day, I decided, no more waiting. I declared it. Out loud. I am a multi-billionaire. I am worthy. I am abundant. You might think I was crazy. My cat probably did. My neighbor certainly would have. But something shifted in me the moment those words left my lips. My energy shifted. My mindset shifted. My actions aligned. It wasn't an overnight miracle. I didn't wake up with billions in my bank account. But the path opened. Opportunities one hadn't even imagined came to me. People who could help me appeared. Ideas flowed. Doors I never saw suddenly swung wide. Have you ever noticed how when you decide, the world conspires with you? That's not luck. That's alignment. That's the power of declaration. Think of it like planting a seed. You don't see the tree immediately, but you water it. You nurture it. You speak to it. You say, grow. And then, one day, It bursts through the soil, reaching for the sky. Consider Oprah. Did she sit waiting for the perfect moment? No. She declared her vision. And the universe answered. Or J.K. Rowling. She faced rejection after rejection. But she declared, I will be successful. My story matters. And today, the world knows her name. So, I ask you, what would happen if you declared your dream today? Not tomorrow. Today. What would change in your life if you spoke your desire into existence? Here's the truth. The moment you declare it, you believe it. And the moment you believe it, your actions align with that belief. Your decisions, your energy, your entire being begins to pull toward that reality. You don't need permission. You don't need proof. You just need the courage to declare, to speak, to believe. So here's what I want you to do. Right now, in your mind, or out loud. Say it. I am abundant. I am wealthy. I am deserving. Feel it. Believe it. Watch as your steps, your opportunities, your entire life begin to shift. Because the universe, it always hears you. Always. I became a multi-billionaire the moment I said it. Not because of luck. Not because of timing. But because I declared it. And that, my friends, is the simplest, yet most profound truth of all. Your words are your magic. Speak them. Believe them. Live them. And watch your world transform. Thank you. Following are the key points you will listen in this video. Declarations shape reality. The words you speak have the power to shape your life. Belief precedes action. Saying it aloud creates belief, which aligns your actions with your goals. Mindset unlocks opportunities. Declaring your intentions shifts your energy and attracts the right people and opportunities. Consistency is key. Like planting a seed, nurturing your declaration daily produces growth. Courage trumps proof. You don't need validation or visible results to speak your truth. Immediate action matters. Don't wait. Declare your dreams today to start the chain reaction of transformation. I want you to imagine a moment with me, a quiet room, the soft hum of life outside, and just you and your thoughts. Imagine holding a dream so big it feels almost impossible to say out loud. The kind of dream that makes your heart race and your palms sweat. You've carried it for years, tucked into the corners of your mind, whispering it to yourself only when no one else is listening. Maybe it's a financial breakthrough, a career leap, a creative masterpiece, or even the kind of abundant life you've only seen in magazines or glimpsed in someone else's Instagram feed. Now, imagine taking that dream, fragile and shimmering, and speaking it into existence. You say it out loud for the first time. I am abundant. I am wealthy. I am capable of achieving what I once thought impossible. For a moment, the words seem to hang in the air, almost fragile, like bubbles that might burst at any second. Your heart thunders. Maybe your mind whispers, who are you kidding? What if it doesn't happen? But then something remarkable begins. You notice a subtle shift inside. Your shoulders, tense for so long, relax just a fraction. Your chest feels a little lighter, as though the weight of fear has loosened its grip. These words, your declaration, carry power because they are the first proof to yourself that you are willing to claim your dream. You are willing to step into the truth that the life you desire is not just possible, but inevitable if you allow yourself to believe it. Think of the stories of those who transformed their reality with a simple declaration. Walt Disney, when he was a young animator struggling with rejection after rejection, declared, I will build something magical that will touch the hearts of millions. People laughed, told him it was impossible. Yet he held on to that declaration, repeating it, believing it, even when the walls of failure pressed in from every direction. And the world knows him now as a creator of joy and imagination on a scale no one could have predicted. The power of his words, his declarations, was not just in the speaking, but in the living, in the alignment of his every thought and action with that spoken truth. Your declaration works in a similar way, and it begins with a subtle but undeniable truth. The words you speak are not just sounds. They are instructions. They are commands to your subconscious mind, to the energy around you, to the universe itself. When you say, I am wealthy, you are not simply fantasizing. You are signaling a new identity, a new frequency that pulls circumstances, opportunities, and people into alignment with that reality. Think about a compass pointing north. Your words are the needle. Speak them, and your life begins to align toward your true north. Let me paint you another picture. Picture a young woman, let's call her Maya. Maya had a vision to start her own business, to create something that would make life easier for people, something that would matter. Every day, she felt the weight of doubt pressing against her. Bills piled up. Family expectations pressed in. Every time she imagined success, the voice in her head said, "Not you. It's too big. It's too risky." Then one morning, tired of waiting for the perfect moment, she looked at herself in the mirror and said it out loud. "I am a successful entrepreneur. My ideas have value. I am destined for abundance." It felt audacious, almost laughable at first, but she said it. And then she began to act. Not recklessly, not blindly, but with small, deliberate steps that echoed the truth of her declaration. She started reaching out to mentors, researching markets, investing in learning. Doors began to open she hadn't even noticed before. People who could support her appeared. Opportunities that once seemed invisible now stood directly in front of her. The declaration did not change her overnight, but it changed everything. It changed the way she saw herself, and that shift radiated outward. You see, there is a profound psychological principle here. When you declare something to be true, your mind begins to look for evidence that confirms it. Your perception filters reality to align with your spoken word. If you say, "I am abundant," your attention sharpens to notice abundance around you, the small opportunities, the helpful conversations, the chances to grow. It's like tuning a radio to the right frequency. Before, you might have heard only static, frustration, and limitation. After your declaration, the static fades, and suddenly you catch the clear signal of possibility. Imagine Thomas Edison in his laboratory, facing failure after failure, hundreds of times. When asked about his repeated failures, he famously said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." He declared a mindset of persistence, a belief that success was inevitable despite the evidence. Those words were a declaration to himself and to the universe that he would succeed, and that declaration shaped reality. Without it, he might have given up. With it, he created the incandescent light that changed the world. Declarations also carry an emotional resonance that quiet thoughts do not. Whispering your dream in your mind is one thing, but saying it aloud, feeling it in your chest, hearing your own voice affirm it, it ignites a spark. That spark grows into a fire. It energizes your actions. It transforms hesitation into boldness, fear into courage. When you declare your vision, you are no longer a passive dreamer. You are a participant, a creator, a force that demands the universe's response. Think about the everyday moments. Have you ever noticed how a simple "I can do this" before a challenge changes the outcome? Maybe it was before a job interview, a presentation, or even a difficult conversation. Those words, short, simple, spoken aloud, prime your mind for success. They remind you of your capacity, of your right to claim what you desire. And the same principle applies to your biggest dreams. If you want to create wealth, abundance, freedom, love, or fulfillment, you must declare it. Not someday. Not when conditions are perfect. Today. Even small, playful examples demonstrate this power. Consider a child learning to walk. They stumble, fall, and yet the little voice inside says, "I will walk. I can do it." And then they rise again. The declaration is embedded in their determination, their belief in their potential. It is not arrogance, it is alignment. It is a simple acknowledgement of the truth of their ability. And they do walk. They always do. Now picture yourself in your own life. Picture a version of you that has already achieved what you want. How does that version feel? Confident, expansive, free, abundant. Now speak to that version of yourself. I am that person. I am that life. I am worthy of all that I desire. Say it aloud. Let it resonate. Let it shape the way you move through the world, the decisions you make, the energy you carry. Every word you speak is a seed. Some will grow faster than others, some may take time, but the soil is fertile, and the water is your unwavering belief. When you declare your dreams, you are not just creating words, you are creating reality. You are stepping into the current of life with intention, signaling your presence, your worth, and your right to abundance. And as you do, the universe responds. Opportunities appear. Synchronicities align. People, resources, and timing converge in ways you never anticipated. That is the magic of a declaration. It is the bridge between what is and what could be, between the dream in your heart and the life waiting for you. And so, even as doubt creeps in, Even as fear whispers, even as the world seems to push back, remember this. Your words are your power.
Speak them. Declare them.
Let them shape the world around you as surely as they shape the world within you. Because every reality, every fortune, every extraordinary life ever created began with a declaration. Imagine walking through a dense forest, sunlight barely reaching the ground. The path twists and turns, hidden under layers of fallen leaves. You have a destination in mind, but the trail is unclear, obstacles everywhere. Now, picture this, two people standing at the same forest entrance. One steps forward, thinking, this will be impossible.
I'll get lost. I'll never make it.
The other steps forward thinking, I can find a way. I will uncover the path. Every obstacle is an opportunity.
Notice how the forest changes depending on the person walking it.
The trees, the sunlight, the terrain. They are the same, but perception transforms the journey entirely.
That is the power of mindset.
The way you view your world, your challenges, and yourself unlocks doors that would otherwise remain invisible. I want you to picture a young man named David. He had grown up believing that success was only for others, people with connections, luck, or a special gift. He had talent, ideas, and passion, but his mindset whispered that he wasn't ready, that life would always be harder for him. He applied for jobs, tried starting small projects, and each time something didn't go perfectly, he heard that old voice. See? You can't do this. One evening, after another rejection, he had a quiet moment alone.
He realized that it wasn't the world that was holding him back. It was his own mind.
That night, he made a declaration. I will see opportunities where others see obstacles.
I am ready to grow.
I will succeed because I choose to believe it. It was subtle, almost invisible at first, but that shift changed everything. The next day, he approached a local business owner to pitch a new product idea. Normally, he would have hesitated, afraid of rejection. But with his new mindset, he saw possibility instead of fear. He presented with confidence, and the business owner not only agreed to a partnership but connected him with investors he had never imagined reaching. Doors that had seemed locked were suddenly wide open, simply because his mindset had shifted. His vision was the same, but his perception transformed the world around him. Mindset works like a lens, filtering everything you experience. It determines what you notice, what you value, and what you act upon. People with a scarcity mindset notice only limitations. They see walls where others see doors, problems where others see opportunities, and risk where others see potential. Meanwhile, someone with an abundance mindset, someone who believes that possibilities are endless, sees a different world. They notice chances, solutions, connections, and moments of serendipity that others overlook entirely. Opportunities are not magic. They are visible only to the mind prepared to receive them.
Consider J.K. Rowling.
Before her books became a global phenomenon, she faced endless rejections. Yet, her mindset never wavered. She saw each rejection not as a final judgment, but as a stepping stone, a signal that she needed to refine her work, find the right match, or persist just a little longer. While others might have seen rejection as a dead end, she saw it as opportunity. That mindset unlocked the doors to a career that would change millions of lives. Your mindset does the same in daily life. Have you ever noticed how two people can face the same challenge but respond completely differently? One sees failure, one sees feedback. One sees limits, one sees possibility. One quits, one persists. The difference isn't talent, luck, or circumstances, it's mindset. And the beauty of it is that mindset is something you can cultivate, something you can choose. It is not fixed. It can grow, expand, and evolve, just like your potential. Let me tell you about Sophia, an artist who dreamed of selling her paintings. For years, she struggled, believing the art world was too competitive, too closed, and that success was for someone else. She created beautiful work but didn't promote it, thinking no one would care. One day, a mentor said to her, "Change your mindset. See yourself as a creator the world needs, not as someone begging for approval."
Sophia took that advice to heart.
She began speaking about her art confidently, showing it online, collaborating with galleries, and approaching buyers with the belief that her work had value.
Opportunities multiplied. People who would never have noticed her before were now reaching out.
Her mindset had unlocked doors that had been invisible when doubt ruled her thinking.
Mindset also shapes resilience.
Life will always throw obstacles, failures, and setbacks in your path.
That is inevitable.
But mindset determines whether those obstacles stop you or propel you forward.
Think of Thomas Edison.
Every failure in his experiments could have been a reason to quit.
But he believed that each misstep was part of the journey.
His mindset transformed repeated failures into opportunities for learning, experimentation, and eventual success. Without that mindset, we might never have experienced the electric light bulb, a creation that changed the world. Even in the smallest moments, mindset matters. Consider a simple conversation. Two people face the same challenge at work. One sees a colleague's criticism as an attack. The other sees it as an opportunity to improve, to learn, to grow. The outcome of the same situation is completely different because of mindset. That ripple effect extends into every area of life: finance, relationships, health, career, creativity. Because mindset shapes perception, perception shapes decisions, and decisions shape reality. Mindset also attracts opportunity in ways that are almost invisible at first. People gravitate toward those who see possibility, those who radiate belief, confidence, and purpose. A negative or limiting mindset repels opportunity. A mindset tuned to growth and abundance pulls doors open. It creates synchronicity, draws mentors, partners, and ideas into alignment. Opportunities often arrive quietly, disguised as small decisions or chance encounters. But your mindset is the magnet that recognizes them, seizes them, and acts upon them.
I want you to think about your own life for a moment.
Are you seeing challenges as dead ends or as stepping stones?
Are you noticing doors or only walls?
Are you holding yourself back with doubt, or stepping forward with courage? Every great opportunity in your life begins in the mind. The moment your mindset shifts from limitation to possibility, everything changes. Your perception becomes sharper, your energy becomes magnetic, and the world begins to align with the vision you hold. Opportunities are everywhere, but only visible to a mind prepared to receive them. Mindset is the key. It is the invisible force that turns vision into reality, fear into courage, doubt into confidence, and obstacles into stepping stones. It determines whether your life unfolds with stagnation or expansion, limitation or abundance, waiting or movement. And here's the quiet truth. Mindset isn't luck.
It isn't talent. It isn't circumstance. It is choice.
You can choose to see the world as a place of endless opportunity or endless limitation. You can choose to see yourself as capable and deserving or as small and insufficient. And the moment you choose the mindset of possibility, the world begins to respond, doors open, and opportunities you never imagined begin to arrive. Imagine standing on a bridge at dusk, the river below swirling with unseen currents. The bridge is narrow, the boards creak under your weight, and the shadows make every step seem uncertain. You can see the far side, just barely, but you have no guarantee that you will make it safely. Every instinct in your body screams to turn back. Yet, there is a voice inside, a quiet, firm insistence, saying, "Step forward anyway. You will make it." That voice is courage. It is the force that allows us to act without proof, to move without certainty, to trust our vision even when the evidence isn't there. Courage trumps proof because the world rarely gives permission or guarantees before we act. I want you to meet Michael, a young entrepreneur with an idea for a revolutionary app. He had no investors, no mentors, no track record, and barely enough savings to pay rent. Friends and family warned him, saying, "You need more proof.
You need more experience.
Don't risk it." Every statistic he read reinforced doubt. Most startups fail. But Michael had something more powerful than proof.
He had courage.
He believed in the vision of his app, in the solution it could provide to real problems. He took the leap, coding late nights, pitching to anyone who would listen, investing his energy despite uncertainty. Months later, his app gained traction, partnerships formed, and investors came forward. If he had waited for proof, the opportunity would have passed. Courage allowed him to act before the world validated him. Think about the times in your own life when you hesitated, waiting for perfect conditions. Maybe it was applying for a dream job, starting a creative project, or speaking your truth in a relationship. How often did you hold back because you lacked proof that success was guaranteed? Proof is seductive. It promises safety, certainty, and comfort. But proof is often an illusion. Life doesn't hand out guarantees before you act. The bridge, the leap, the chance, it will always require courage first.
Consider the story of Rosa Parks.
On that ordinary December day in 1955, she refused to give up her seat on a bus.
She had no proof that her act would ignite change.
She had no guarantee that her courage would ripple across the nation.
Yet she acted anyway.
That single act, driven by courage and conviction rather than certainty, became a catalyst for the civil rights movement. Courage trumped proof. Action before evidence shaped history. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the willingness to act in spite of fear, to step into uncertainty with conviction. I remember a moment in my own life, sitting with a contract in front of me, my hands trembling. Everything about me screamed to say no, to wait until I had more proof that it would work. But deep inside, I felt the pull to step forward, to take the risk, to trust my instincts.
I signed. That single act of courage opened doors I could never have anticipated.
The proof came later, but the first step required no guarantee, only belief in myself and the willingness to act. Let me tell you about Emma, a young writer who had spent years polishing her manuscript in solitude. She feared rejection, feared criticism, feared wasting time.
She had no proof that anyone would care about her words.
But one day, she made a choice. She would act despite fear. She submitted her manuscript to a publisher. The letter of acceptance didn't arrive immediately, but the act of courage set her on a path that ultimately led to publication, recognition, and a career she had only dreamed of. Courage had preceded proof, and in that space, opportunity flourished. Courage also shapes perception. When you act boldly without proof, you see possibilities others miss. You notice opportunities where others see obstacles. You develop resilience because the act of stepping forward teaches you that uncertainty is not a wall, but a doorway. Every courageous step builds confidence. Every leap taken without guarantee strengthens your resolve. And each small victory reinforces the truth that proof is not necessary. Action fueled by courage creates its own evidence.
Think of explorers who discovered new lands.
Columbus, setting sail into uncharted waters, had no proof he would reach his destination. Every wave, every storm, every unknown factor could have been reason to turn back.
Yet he pressed forward.
The courage to act without proof transformed the world. Imagine if he had waited for maps, for certainty, for guarantees.
History would have been unchanged, an opportunity lost.
Courage made the impossible possible. Even in the smallest, everyday decisions, courage matters. The person who introduces themselves to a stranger, who pitches an idea at a meeting, who invests in a project with no guaranteed return, is practicing the same principle.
Proof is rarely complete before action.
Courage bridges the gap between vision and reality. It allows life to respond, doors to open, opportunities to appear, and success to manifest. Have you ever noticed how fear masquerades as practicality? Wait for proof, it whispers. Check again, research more, make sure it's safe.
But these whispers are often the enemy of progress.
Life doesn't reward hesitation. It rewards boldness, willingness, and courage. Those who wait for proof are often left behind, while those who act with courage find their path illuminated as they move. Courage also fosters innovation. Every breakthrough, every invention, every artistic achievement begins with someone daring to step into the unknown. Steve Jobs didn't have proof that the iPhone would succeed. Rosa Parks didn't have proof that her single act would change society. Every great creation in history emerged because someone acted despite doubt, fear, and uncertainty. They trusted themselves, trusted their vision, and trusted that courage would light the way. I want you to picture yourself in your own life, facing a challenge that feels impossible, staring at a goal that seems beyond reach. Notice the voice that says, "Wait. Prove it first."
Now, replace it with another voice. I will act. I will try.
I will step forward, even without certainty.
That is the shift that changes everything.
Courage creates motion. Motion generates opportunity. Opportunity transforms dreams into reality. Every moment of doubt can become a moment of action if courage precedes proof. Every time you step forward into uncertainty, you create a ripple that can expand into waves of change.
Courage opens doors that logic cannot.
It transforms fear into fuel, hesitation into movement, and dreams into lived experience. The world rewards those who act boldly, even when the path is hidden, even when the evidence is lacking, because action itself generates its own proof. Imagine waking up one morning with a dream burning in your chest, a vision so vivid it keeps you awake at night.
You know what you want. You feel it in every fiber of your being.
And yet, you hesitate.
I'll start tomorrow, you whisper.
I need more time, more resources, more clarity. That tomorrow never comes. Days turn into weeks, weeks into months, and the dream fades into background noise.
Opportunity doesn't wait. Time doesn't pause.
Immediate action is the bridge between what you imagine and what you experience. I want you to picture Jasmine, a young woman who had dreamed of opening her own bakery since she was a child. She loved baking, loved creating, loved the joy on people's faces when they tasted her cakes. For years, she told herself she needed more savings, more experience, more the perfect location. One day, a friend told her, "Stop waiting.
Start now."
Jasmine hesitated. Fear whispered, doubt crept in. But something shifted inside her. She realized that the act of starting immediately, even imperfectly, was more powerful than waiting for perfection. The next morning, she set up a small table in her living room, posted on social media, and began selling to friends and neighbors.
The orders came. Word spread.
Opportunities she had never anticipated, local collaborations, small investors, press features, began to flow. That moment of immediate action transformed a dream into reality.
Immediate action matters because the universe responds to motion. It doesn't reward intention alone. It doesn't reward planning alone. It rewards those who move. Imagine trying to catch a train.
You can stand on the platform thinking about how much you want to board, imagining yourself arriving at your destination, but until you step forward, until you act, the train passes by.
Dreams are like trains.
They arrive in your life, but only if you are moving, ready to step on board. Hesitation guarantees you miss the opportunity. Action, even if imperfect, puts you in motion, and motion attracts momentum.
Think of the story of Richard Branson.
When he decided to start Virgin Airlines, he didn't have the perfect blueprint, the perfect market analysis, or the perfect timing. What he had was a vision and the courage to act immediately. He stepped into the unknown, made decisions fast, learned from mistakes along the way, and in doing so, created an empire. Immediate action allowed him to turn ideas into impact. Waiting would have meant losing the window of opportunity, and the world would have passed him by. Even in small moments, immediate action compounds into extraordinary results.
Consider your daily habits.
The person who decides to take the first step toward health, relationships, or learning today, rather than next week, is already ahead of those who wait. A single email sent now, a single conversation initiated now, a single idea acted upon now, can set in motion events that grow beyond comprehension. Delays often kill momentum.
Action accelerates it.
I remember a personal moment, standing in front of a decision that terrified me. I had an opportunity that could change the trajectory of my life, but I hesitated, waiting for clarity.
Hours passed. Days passed. The clarity never came.
Finally, I realized that perfect conditions never arrive. If I wanted to create change, I had to act now. I took the first step, imperfect and uncertain, and everything shifted. Opportunities one could never have planned appeared, and momentum carried me forward in ways I had not anticipated. Action had unlocked what planning alone never could. Immediate action also transforms fear. When we wait, fear grows, multiplies, and paralyzes. When we act, fear begins to shrink. It loses its power because momentum replaces hesitation. Each step forward builds confidence, each move creates results, each decision generates evidence that we are capable.
Action is the antidote to doubt.
Waiting feeds the mind's worst fears, but doing something, anything toward the dream, breaks the cycle. Consider the story of a student named Liam, who dreamed of writing a novel. He spent months outlining, researching, and imagining the perfect story. Yet, the manuscript remained empty. One night, he realized he was waiting for inspiration, waiting for the perfect moment.
He decided to write one page. Just one.
That page led to another.
And another.
Within months, he had completed the first draft. Immediate action, starting small, starting imperfectly, had transformed hesitation into progress. The world responded to his motion, and his dream began to materialize. Immediate action matters because timing is not always predictable. Opportunities often come in flashes, and hesitation can mean missing them entirely. A business opening, a job posting, a creative collaboration, a chance encounter, these moments arrive unexpectedly. If you are not ready to act immediately, the opportunity slips through your fingers. The difference between those who achieve extraordinary success and those who watch from the sidelines is often a matter of speed, the willingness to act now, not later. Even in relationships, immediate action creates momentum. Consider meeting someone who could profoundly impact your life. Waiting, hesitating, overthinking, the moment passes. But a small, decisive gesture, a hello, a message, an invitation, can set in motion a chain of events that transforms your path. The principle is universal. Action precedes results. The world responds to motion, not contemplation alone.
I want you to picture your own life.
Think of the dream, the goal, the vision you've been carrying, tucked in your mind or heart, waiting for the perfect moment.
That moment will never arrive.
The world will not pause until you feel ready. Waiting ensures nothing changes. Acting now creates momentum, opens doors, and generates the proof you seek.
Start immediately. Start small. Start imperfectly.
Every action is a seed. Every step is a signal to the universe that you are ready. The key is not perfection.
It is not complete certainty. It is movement. Motion creates energy.
Energy attracts opportunity. Opportunity manifests results. Each moment of immediate action compounds into exponential growth. The people, resources, ideas, and connections you need begin to align around the force of your motion. Waiting, in contrast, creates stagnation. Time is the currency of dreams, and immediate action is how you spend it wisely. Remember, every empire, every invention, every career, every life of fulfillment began with a first step, taken immediately, taken boldly, taken without guarantee. The first call, the first pitch, the first page, the first message, the first decision, these moments are where change begins. Immediate action transforms intention into reality.
It transforms vision into experience. It transforms dreams into life.
Imagine planting a tiny seed in the soil. You water it once and wait.
Nothing happens.
You water it again after a week.
Still, nothing seems to change.
Then you remember, you need to water it every day, nourish it, care for it, even when it seems like nothing is happening.
That is the essence of consistency.
It is the quiet, patient, persistent effort that turns dreams into reality. One bold action or moment of courage may spark a change, but without consistency, the spark fades. It is the daily commitment, the repeated steps, the unwavering dedication that transforms potential into lasting success. I want you to meet Aaron, a musician who dreamed of creating music that could touch hearts around the world. In the beginning, he practiced sporadically, inspired by bursts of motivation. Some days he composed melodies, some days he didn't touch a note. His progress was slow, inconsistent, frustrating. Then he realized that talent alone was not enough. The people who achieved greatness were not necessarily the most talented, they were the most consistent. Aaron made a decision. No matter how small, he would practice every day, compose every day, and share his music every day. At first, it felt tedious. At first, it felt repetitive. But over time, the compound effect became undeniable. His skill improved, his confidence grew, and opportunities began to appear. The momentum of consistent action transformed his dream into a tangible reality. Consistency is like carving a path through a dense forest.
The first swing of the machete barely makes a mark.
The next swing, and the next, slowly clear a trail. At times, the progress seems invisible.
You may wonder if the effort is worth it, if the path will ever appear.
But the forest does not resist forever. With every repeated effort, the trail becomes clearer, the way forward becomes easier, and what once seemed impossible becomes natural. Greatness is never a single event, it is the accumulation of consistent steps over time. Consider Serena Williams. Her legendary tennis career was not born from a single match or a single moment of brilliance. It was born from years of consistent practice, drills, fitness routines, and matches, day after day, season after season.
Consistency turned effort into mastery.
The same principle applies to every area of life. Wealth, health, creativity, relationships, and personal growth are not the result of one grand act. They are the result of small, consistent efforts, repeated until they compound into extraordinary outcomes. I remember a moment in my own life when consistency made the difference. I had started a project with high hopes, but results were slow. The temptation to quit, to give up, was enormous. I questioned whether my efforts would ever bear fruit. Then I reminded myself, it wasn't about immediate success. It was about showing up every day, doing the work, trusting the process. And slowly, imperceptibly at first, things began to shift. Ideas matured, opportunities arose, and momentum grew. By the time I looked back, The project had transformed into something far greater than I had imagined, all because of consistent effort over time. Consistency also builds trust, trust in yourself and trust from others. When you show up, day after day, with dedication and integrity, people notice. Opportunities, collaborations, and support naturally gravitate toward those who are reliable, persistent, and committed. Your word becomes your bond, and your consistent effort signals to the world that you are serious, capable, and ready to achieve your dreams. Let me tell you about Mia, a writer who dreamed of publishing her own books. She didn't wait for inspiration or perfect conditions. Instead, she committed to writing one page every single day. Some days she struggled, some days the words flowed like rivers. But she never skipped a day. Years later, her commitment had produced multiple novels, a devoted readership, and a career she once thought impossible. Consistency, not sporadic genius, was the engine behind her success. Consistency also strengthens resilience. Life is unpredictable, and challenges are inevitable. Without consistent habits and effort, setbacks can derail even the most promising dreams. But when you have built the discipline of showing up, of acting despite fatigue, doubt, or fear, you develop a resilience that carries you through adversity. Every small, repeated action creates a foundation that can withstand storms, failures, and obstacles. It is the invisible backbone of every extraordinary life. Even in the smallest tasks, consistency matters. The entrepreneur who sends one email every day, the artist who draws a sketch each morning, the student who reviews material daily, or the athlete who trains every day, each is creating momentum. Each is compounding their effort, layer by layer, until the results become inevitable. The magic isn't in a single grand act, it is in the disciplined repetition that builds mastery, influence, and impact over time.
Think about the compound effect.
A single dollar invested consistently grows over decades. A single habit practiced consistently shapes character over years. A single choice made consistently changes the trajectory of your life. Consistency multiplies effort in ways that are almost imperceptible in the moment but undeniable in the long term. Success is not the result of luck, it is the result of showing up, day after day, with intentionality, focus, and persistence. I want you to picture your own life, the dreams you carry, the goals you have, the vision you hold. Ask yourself, are you showing up consistently, even when it is hard, even when progress feels slow, even when results seem invisible?
Every small action matters. Every repeated effort compounds.
Every day you commit to your dream, you lay another brick on the foundation of your future. One day, without even noticing, you look back and realize the impossible has become reality, all because you never stopped showing up. Consistency transforms potential into power, vision into reality, and hope into tangible results.
It is not flashy. It is not dramatic.
It is quiet, patient, and relentless.
But it is unstoppable.
The seed you plant, the small effort you make today, the commitment you honor, these are the actions that, repeated day after day, will change your life. Immediate action, courage, mindset, belief, declarations, all of these principles are magnified and solidified through consistency. It is the silent engine of extraordinary lives, the secret force behind every billionaire, every creator, every innovator, every dream realized.
So now I ask you, what will you do with the power you hold inside right this very moment?
Will you wait for the perfect time, for the right circumstances, for proof that may never come? Or will you stand, declare your vision, and step forward with courage, belief, and relentless action?
The moment is now. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Now.
Say it with me, even in your mind. I will act. I will believe. I will move.
Say it again. I will act. I will believe.
I will move.
Say it one more time. I will act.
I will believe. I will move. Because it is in this repetition, in this unwavering declaration, that the impossible becomes inevitable. Every great life, every incredible achievement, every breakthrough begins with a single choice, a choice to act immediately, a choice to believe unwaveringly, a choice to persist relentlessly. The world will not wait for you. Opportunities will not pause.
Your dreams will not chase you.
Only action, only courage, only consistency, only belief, only mindset, only you can bring them into reality.
So rise. Step forward. Speak your truth. Claim your vision. Take that leap. Make that call. Send that message. Write that page. Move with courage.
Move with faith.
Move now.
Because the difference between a life of what ifs and a life of extraordinary fulfillment is this: the moment you decide, the moment you act, the moment you declare, you have already changed everything. And when you do, when you truly embrace your power, remember this: you don't become a billionaire, a creator, a visionary, or a dreamer by waiting.
You become them the moment you declare it.
The moment you act, the moment you believe.
That's the moment your life is forever changed. So go. Speak it.
Believe it.
Act on it.
And watch as the universe bends, doors open, and your destiny unfolds. Because the truth is simple, and it is profound. The moment you declare it, the moment you act, the moment you believe, is the moment everything begins.
You know what's funny? We all say we want to change. But deep down, most of us don't want to let go of the person we are now. We cling to our habits, our fears, even our excuses. Because they feel familiar. And familiar feels safe. But here's the truth. The version of you that's standing here today cannot take you where you want to go tomorrow. Think about a snake. When it outgrows its skin, it doesn't keep stretching it. It sheds it. And yes, it's uncomfortable. Vulnerable. But without shedding, it can't grow. We humans? We try to drag our old skin into our new life. We want a fresh chapter, without closing the last one. We want the sunrise, without leaving the night. It doesn't work that way. I remember meeting a man who had been stuck in the same job for 15 years. Every day, he complained about how miserable he was. He said, "One day I'll start my own business." But when I asked, "What's stopping you?" his answer was always the same. "I don't know. I guess I'm just not ready yet." Here's what I learned. He wasn't waiting for the right time. He was waiting for permission to stop being his old self. The self that was afraid to take risks. The self that needed certainty more than freedom. That old self was killing his dream. If you've ever tried to plant a seed in hard, dry soil, you know it won't grow. The old you is that hard soil. You have to break it open, loosen it, make space. So something new can take root. So I have to ask you, what parts of you have to die, for the real you to live? Is it the self-doubt? The fear of judgment? The "I'll start tomorrow" version of you? Because until you bury that old self, you'll keep living the same year over and over. And calling it a life. But here's the beautiful part. The moment you release who you used to be, you create space for who you can be. That's when the shy person finds their voice. That's when the procrastinator becomes unstoppable. That's when the just surviving soul starts thriving. Every new version of you requires a funeral for the old one. So, let the old self die. Say goodbye to the habits that chain you. Lay to rest the beliefs that shrink you. And when you walk away from that grave, don't look back. Because the true you, the one who's been waiting, is ready to live. And in this talk, you're going to discover why you can't step into your future while gripping your past. The uncomfortable truth about shedding your old habits, fears, and beliefs. How comfort can become your biggest prison. The reason growth feels like breaking before it feels like freedom. Why waiting for the right time is the biggest lie we tell ourselves. How letting go of your old self creates space for strength and confidence. And the single moment when real transformation begins. So, stay with me, because once you hear this, you'll never look at change the same way again. Why you can't step into your future while gripping your past. Imagine trying to walk forward while holding onto a heavy chain that's tied to a wall behind you. You might take a few steps, but eventually, the pull from behind stops you. That's exactly what it's like when you try to create a new life while still gripping your past. Every choice, every move, every dream gets slowed down by the weight of who you used to be. The past feels familiar, and familiarity can trick you into thinking it's safe. But the truth is, it's often the very thing keeping you from stepping into the future you've been imagining. I've seen people carry their past like an old suitcase they refuse to put down. It's filled with regrets, failures, memories, and old versions of themselves they've outgrown. The strange thing is, they know the suitcase is heavy. They even complain about it. But when it comes time to set it down, they grip the handle tighter. Maybe it's because the unknown feels scarier than the pain they've learned to live with. Maybe it's because letting go would mean admitting that chapter of their life is over, and endings, no matter how necessary, can hurt. I once knew a woman named Sarah who dreamed of starting over after a divorce. She talked about moving to a new city, meeting new people, and building a fresh life for herself. But every time an opportunity came, she hesitated. She'd say things like, "What if it doesn't work out? What if I fail again?" She wasn't just afraid of the future, she was still living in her old story. Her decisions were being made by the woman she was 5 years ago, not the woman she could be today. She'd carry around old pictures, old messages, even old habits. Her phone still had the same number she shared with her ex, as if she was leaving a door open to a life she claimed she didn't want anymore. And that's what many of us do. We keep doors open to the past while telling ourselves we're moving on. But how can you truly step into a new chapter if your feet are still planted in the old one? Think about it. A butterfly can't stay in the cocoon and still expect to fly. The transformation happens because it leaves that shell behind. If it tried to hold on to even a small part of the cocoon, its wings wouldn't open fully. We humans are no different. We can't half live in the past and fully live in the future. The two worlds are pulling in opposite directions, and sooner or later, something has to give. But here's the thing, the past doesn't just hold you physically, it shapes the way you think. If your mind is still replaying old mistakes, old relationships, or old failures, then your decisions are still being influenced by them. You might pass on an opportunity because it didn't work last time. You might reject love because people can't be trusted. You might avoid risk because you remember what happened before. And in doing so, you let your history write your future. I remember talking to a man who once said, "I can't move forward because I don't want to forget who I am." But I told him, "You're not forgetting who you are, you're making room for who you're meant to become." There's a difference between honoring your past and living in it. Honoring means you acknowledge it, learn from it, and keep the lessons. Living in it means you replay it over and over like an old movie, even though you already know the ending. And the danger with replaying it too much is that you start to believe that's the only story you'll ever have. You stop expecting surprises. You stop believing change is possible. You stop seeing yourself as someone who can become more. Imagine you're on a train, and every station is an opportunity. A new job, a new relationship, a new habit, a new adventure. But you keep stepping off the train at the station called yesterday. The scenery never changes, the conversations stay the same, and your world stays small. The train to the future keeps moving, but you're not on it. Why? Because your comfort zone is built from the bricks of your past. And tearing it down feels like tearing down your identity. But here's the truth, your identity is not your history. Your identity is your potential. Your future self is waiting for you at a place your past self has never been. Sometimes we grip the past because it gives us excuses. If we tell ourselves, "I've always been this way," or "this always happens to me," then we don't have to take the risk of trying again. It's safer to be predictable than to step into the unknown. But the unknown is where your future lives. The unknown is where growth happens. As the author John C. Maxwell once said, "Change is inevitable, but growth is optional." You can't grow if you refuse to release the parts of you that belong to an earlier version of your life. The past can be a teacher, but if you let it, it can also be a prison. And many of us unknowingly choose the prison because at least we know its walls. The truth is, your past will never stop calling you. Old memories will come up. Old habits will try to sneak back in. Old voices will whisper, "Remember when?" And when they do, you'll have a choice, to answer the call or to keep walking forward. Every time you choose forward, you loosen the grip. Every time you choose forward, the chain gets lighter. Every time you choose forward, you take another step toward becoming the version of you that's been waiting all along. It's not about erasing where you came from. It's about deciding that where you came from is not where you're staying. The uncomfortable truth about shedding your old habits, fears, and beliefs. Letting go of old habits, fears, and beliefs sounds simple when we say it out loud. We treat it like cleaning out a closet, just toss out what doesn't serve you anymore. But in reality, it's nothing like that. Old habits are tied to our identity. Fears are wired into our survival instincts. Beliefs are stitched into the fabric of how we see the world. Removing them isn't a tidy process. It's messy. It's uncomfortable. Sometimes, it even feels like losing a part of yourself. That's why so many people talk about change but never truly go through with it. They underestimate the emotional cost. They want the transformation without the discomfort, the results without the release. But the truth is, change often feels like breaking before it feels like growing. I once met a man named David who wanted to quit smoking. On the surface, it was just a bad habit. But the more we talked, the more I realized smoking wasn't just something he did, it was part of who he thought he was. His friends knew him as the guy who always has a cigarette. Stressful day? Light up. Celebrating something? Light up. Bored? Light up. It was his comfort, his reward, his coping mechanism. Quitting wasn't just about stopping a behavior, it was about rewriting his identity. And that's where the discomfort comes in. When you let go of something you've leaned on for years, you're suddenly standing without your crutch. It's shaky, it's awkward, and your mind tries to convince you to go back because the old way felt stable, even if it was slowly hurting you. Fears work the same way. We think of fear as something to push through, but many fears are deeply ingrained. Some of them come from experiences we had years ago, maybe even in childhood. If you grew up hearing "don't take risks, you'll fail," that warning becomes a protective shield you carry into adulthood. It's heavy, but it feels like it's keeping you safe. The day you try to put it down, everything inside you screams that you're making a mistake. That's why letting go of fear isn't just about courage, it's about learning to live without a shield you've had your whole life. At first, you feel exposed, vulnerable, almost naked in the world. But only when you get past that stage can you realize you're lighter and freer without it. And then there are beliefs, the hardest of all to release. Beliefs are invisible walls that define the space we think we can move in. If you believe you're not good enough, you'll never try for more. If you believe money is evil, you'll sabotage your own success. If you believe people can't be trusted, you'll never build deep relationships. Challenging these beliefs feels like tearing down the walls of a house you've lived in for decades. It's unsettling because those walls made you feel secure, even though they also kept you trapped. Many people would rather stay in a small, safe house than step into the wide, uncertain open. But that's the trade. You can have security or you can have growth, but rarely both. I think of it like pruning a tree. When you cut away branches, it looks harsh. You're taking away parts of something that's been growing for years. The tree doesn't look better immediately. In fact, it can look worse. But pruning is necessary for healthier growth. Old habits, fears, and beliefs are those overgrown branches. Cutting them back might leave you feeling bad for a while, but it creates space for something stronger and more vibrant to grow. The uncomfortable truth is that shedding them will never feel easy in the moment. You'll question yourself. You'll grieve the loss of something that was once a part of you. You might even feel like you're standing in the ruins of your old self. But in that empty space, in that raw and vulnerable place, something new begins to take shape. And that something is the version of you that's been waiting for the chance to finally live. How comfort can become your biggest prison. Comfort has a way of disguising itself as happiness. It feels warm, predictable, and safe, like a favorite blanket you've had for years. You wrap yourself in it and tell yourself, this is enough. And for a while, it is. But comfort has a hidden cost. It keeps you exactly where you are. It doesn't challenge you. It doesn't stretch you. It doesn't demand you grow. It quietly convinces you that you don't need to move, and before you know it, what once felt like safety has become a cage. The bars aren't made of steel, they are made of routines, familiar faces, predictable days, and the absence of risk. You don't see them at first because they are comfortable. But that's exactly what makes them dangerous. I remember a guy named Liam who had been in the same job for over a decade. He didn't hate it, but he didn't love it either. It was fine. He knew the work inside out. He knew exactly how much his paycheck would be. He knew what time his lunch break was every day. No surprises. No challenges. And no growth. Every now and then, he'd get an idea about starting his own business or going after a promotion somewhere else, but then he'd tell himself, why rock the boat? I'm doing okay. That's comfort talking, the quiet voice that sounds reasonable but is actually stealing years of your life without you noticing. Liam wasn't stuck because he lacked skill or opportunity. He was stuck because comfort had wrapped itself around him so tightly that the thought of change felt more terrifying than the thought of staying the same. Comfort tricks you by making discomfort look like danger. You start to believe that if something feels scary or uncertain, it must be wrong. But in truth, almost everything worth having in life comes with discomfort at the start. learning a new skill, meeting new people, moving to a new place, starting a business, ending a toxic relationship. The fear you feel in those moments isn't a warning to stop, it's a sign you're crossing into territory where growth lives. The problem is, if you've been in your comfort zone too long, even small risks feel massive. You've built your entire reality inside 4 invisible walls, and stepping beyond them feels like stepping off a cliff. That's why so many people never leave. They mistake the absence of fear for peace, when really it's just stagnation. It's like sitting in a warm bath. At first, it feels amazing. You relax. You let go. But if you stay in too long, the water cools, your skin wrinkles, and you start to feel heavy and sluggish. Comfort zones are the same. They start out soothing, but stay too long and they become draining, even harmful. The worst part? They make you forget that there's a whole world outside. You stop dreaming big because your reality shrinks to fit the size of what you already know. You trade possibility for predictability. You accept good enough instead of chasing great. I think of Nelson Mandela's words, "There is no passion to be found in settling for a life that is less than the one you are capable of living." Comfort makes settling feel easy, almost logical. It whispers, "Don't take the risk. Don't make the change. Just stay here." And in listening to it, you slowly build a prison without realizing you're both the prisoner and the warden. The door isn't locked, but you've convinced yourself there's no point in leaving. The day you step beyond that door will feel terrifying at first. Your heart will race, your mind will question, and part of you will want to run back to what's familiar. But every step you take outside that prison, the world will expand. And you'll wonder why you ever let comfort keep you so small. The reason growth feels like breaking before it feels like freedom. Growth has a strange way of arriving in our lives. It doesn't come wrapped in a shiny box with a bow on top. It doesn't announce itself with a trumpet or knock politely on the door. Most of the time, growth shows up disguised as pain. It feels like breaking before it feels like freedom, and that's the part most people don't talk about. We love the idea of becoming stronger, wiser, more confident, but when we're in the middle of it, it can feel like our whole world is falling apart. That's because growth is not just about adding something new to your life, it's about dismantling parts of yourself that can't come with you to the next chapter. And dismantling hurts. I once spoke with a woman named Clay who left a toxic relationship after 10 years. Everyone told her she was brave. Everyone said she'd feel liberated. And she did, eventually. But in the beginning, she didn't feel free at all. She felt empty. Lost. She would walk into the quiet of her apartment and feel the ache of absence. Even though that relationship was suffocating her, it was familiar. Letting go meant losing not only a person but a rhythm, a routine, a version of herself she had known for a decade. "I thought leaving would feel like flying," she told me. "But it felt like I'd cut off a part of myself." That's the thing, when you break away from something that has shaped you, even if it's been hurting you, there's grief involved. Growth demands that you give up comfort, and comfort, no matter how unhealthy, becomes a part of your identity. So when it's stripped away, your mind fights it. It whispers, "Go back. This is too much. You're not ready." That's why people retreat to old patterns, even after they've promised themselves they'd change. They confuse the discomfort of growth with the idea that something is wrong, when in reality, it's a sign they are on the right path. Think about a seed. Before it becomes a plant, it has to crack open. From the outside, that cracking looks like destruction. The smooth shell is broken, split, torn apart. But without that break, there's no sprout. There's no new life. You and I go through the same process. The breaking moments, the heartbreaks, the failures, the moments of uncertainty, are cracks in the shell of who we've been. And only through those cracks can the next version of us emerge. I went through this myself when I left my first business. I had poured years of my life into it, my energy, my creativity, my pride. And when it failed, it felt like I had failed. I remember lying awake at night thinking, who am I without this? The loss was like tearing down a house I had lived in for years, brick by brick, without knowing where I would sleep next. Friends tried to reassure me that something better was coming, but in the middle of that uncertainty, those words felt hollow. What I didn't know at the time was that the breaking I was experiencing was making room for something bigger. The pain was proof that I was letting go of something too small for the person I was becoming. We don't talk enough about the in-between, the gap between letting go of the old and stepping fully into the new. That gap can feel unbearable because it's full of unknowns. Your old habits, your old circles, your old identity, they're gone. But the new ones haven't fully formed yet. You're in transition, and transitions are messy. It's like being on a bridge in the middle of a storm, with no way to see the other side clearly. And here's the catch, you can't run across the bridge just to get it over with. Growth has its own pace. You have to walk through the breaking, even when you want to sprint to the finish. Some people call this the dark night of the soul. It's that period where you feel stripped bare, where everything you've been clinging to slips from your hands. And the strange, almost cruel part is that from the outside, it can look like you're falling apart. People may not understand why you seem distant, why you're questioning everything, why you're not yourself. But the truth is, you are becoming yourself. The real you is emerging, but first the old layers have to be shed, and shedding is rarely graceful. I think about the process of breaking in a pair of new shoes. At first, they pinch, they rub, they give you blisters. You might even think, these don't fit. I made a mistake. But over time, as you keep walking, they start to mold to your shape. The discomfort fades, and suddenly they feel like they were made for you. Growth is like that. At first, it doesn't feel like it fits. It feels awkward, painful, and foreign. But if you keep walking through the discomfort, one day you wake up and realize, you've grown into it. There's also another reason growth feels like breaking. It exposes the truth. When you start changing, you can't hide behind the same excuses anymore. You see the people, places, and habits that have been holding you back. And sometimes, you have to let go of relationships or routines you thought you'd keep forever. That's hard. It can feel like betrayal, but in reality, it's alignment. You're choosing the life you want over the life you've outgrown. And not everyone will applaud you for that. Some will try to pull you back into the old patterns because it's more comfortable for them if you stay the same. Part of the breaking is realizing not everyone can come with you to your next level. And here's the paradox. The very things that feel like they're breaking you are often the things setting you free. Clay's loneliness after her breakup? That space became the soil for new friendships, passions, and a version of herself she never would have met otherwise. My business failure? It forced me to see that I had been aiming too small and clinging to an identity that no longer fit. Without the loss, I never would have made the leap into the work I truly love today. But you don't see the freedom while you're still breaking. You only see the pieces of the life you thought you needed lying on the ground. That's why patience is so critical. You have to trust that the breaking is not the end of your story, it's the start of a better one. The seed doesn't know it's about to become a plant. It just knows it's splitting apart. You don't always know where your growth is leading, but you have to keep going anyway. The day will come when you look back and realize the breaking was the most important thing that ever happened to you. Because without it, you'd still be living inside the shell of your old self, safe, maybe, but small. And the freedom you've been dreaming about? It was waiting for you all along, on the other side of that break. The reason growth feels like breaking before it feels like freedom. Growth rarely arrives the way we imagine it. We picture it as this uplifting, exciting moment where we finally step into the best version of ourselves. We imagine smiles, lightness, and the sweet taste of victory. But in reality, it often starts with tears, with confusion, with the heavy ache of loss. Because before growth can give you freedom, it has to take something from you, the pieces of your life, your habits, your identity, that cannot survive in the place you're headed. And losing those pieces can feel like breaking. I knew a man named Jordan who had spent years building a career that looked perfect on paper. He had the salary, the office, the respect. But deep down, he hated it. One day, he made the decision to walk away and start something new. You'd think that choice would feel liberating, and in a way, it did. But the first weeks were brutal. He told me, I feel like I've ripped out the floor from under me. The routine that once trapped him had also held him together. Without it, he felt exposed, unstable, and uncertain. And that's what no one tells you. Even when you leave something that's been hurting you, part of you will still mourn it. Growth demands you shed your old skin, and shedding doesn't happen gently. Think of a caterpillar in a cocoon. We romanticize the butterfly's beauty, but we forget that inside that cocoon, the caterpillar completely dissolves. It doesn't just grow wings, it breaks down into something unrecognizable before it becomes whole again. We go through the same process. In order to become who we're meant to be, parts of who we've been must dissolve. And while you're in that stage, it feels like chaos, not creation. For me, it happened when I left a long-term relationship. I thought the moment I walked away, I'd feel lighter, but instead I felt hollow. My days felt strange without the rhythm I'd known for years. Even though the relationship had been limiting my growth, it had given me a sense of certainty. And certainty, no matter how unhealthy, is hard to give up. I learned that the first stage of growth often feels like loss, not gain. It's a quiet kind of grief. The breaking happens because growth forces you into the unknown. The patterns, habits, and people you've leaned on may not fit where you're going. And when you let them go, you're left with an empty space that hasn't yet been filled. It's like standing in the middle of a bridge, unable to see the shore you're walking toward. Every instinct in you screams to run back to the safety of the starting point. But growth asks you to keep moving forward even when you can't see the other side. The mind doesn't like this. The mind craves the familiar. That's why so many people mistake the pain of transformation for a sign that something is wrong. They think, if I'm growing, shouldn't I feel better? But think about building muscle. The process literally involves tearing your muscle fibers so they can repair stronger. The tearing hurts. But without it, there's no strength gained. Growth works the same way. The breaking is not a sign you're failing, it's the proof you're changing. And here's something even more difficult. Sometimes, the breaking involves people. As you grow, you may find that certain relationships no longer align with the person you're becoming. You might outgrow conversations that once felt exciting. You might feel a distance between yourself and people who once felt like home. Letting go of them, or even just accepting the change, can feel like betrayal. But the truth is, not everyone can walk with you into your next chapter. Some were only meant to be part of the earlier pages of your story. It's the same with beliefs. You may realize that some of your deepest convictions, about yourself, about success, about love, were never really yours to begin with. They came from your upbringing, your culture, your past experiences. And when growth calls you to challenge them, it can feel like tearing down the walls of a house you've lived in for years. Those walls kept you safe, but they also kept you small. Without them, the world feels overwhelming at first. But only without them can you expand into something greater. The truth is, the breaking phase is the most misunderstood part of growth. We think of it as the enemy, when really, it's the midwife. It's the part of the process that delivers you into the next version of yourself. You can't get there without it. And the more you fight it, by clinging to old patterns, by rushing the process, by pretending you're okay when you're not, the longer it takes. I remember hearing someone say, the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. That's exactly what the breaking feels like, a dark, uncertain place you'd rather avoid. But when you face it, when you sit in the discomfort instead of running from it, something remarkable happens. The fear starts to shrink. The unknown becomes less threatening. And slowly, you begin to see the outlines of the freedom that's been waiting for you. Claire, a friend of mine, once described her own growth journey after leaving a job she despised. At first, I felt like a vase that had been shattered. But piece by piece, I started putting myself back together, this time in a shape I actually wanted. That's the gift of breaking. It gives you the chance to rebuild intentionally. To choose what stays. To choose what goes. To choose who you want to be moving forward. The hard truth is, the freedom you crave isn't found in avoiding the breaking, it's found on the other side of it. But to get there, you have to be willing to let yourself fall apart a little. You have to trust that the discomfort is temporary, but the transformation will be permanent. You have to remember that every broken shell makes way for a new beginning. One day, you'll look back and realize that the breaking wasn't the end of you, it was the beginning. And in that moment, you'll finally understand why it had to hurt before it could heal, why it had to dismantle before it could rebuild, and why it had to feel like breaking before it could ever feel like freedom. Why waiting for the right time is the biggest lie we tell ourselves. We love the idea of the right time. It feels logical. It feels mature. It feels like patience. We tell ourselves, I'll start when I'm ready. When things calm down. When I have more money, more confidence, more clarity. It sounds reasonable, but here's the truth. Waiting for the right time is one of the biggest lies we tell ourselves. Because deep down, it's rarely about timing, it's about fear. Fear disguised as strategy. Fear wearing the mask of preparation. I once met a man named Ethan who dreamed of writing a book. He'd talk about it every year at New Year's gatherings. This is the year, he'd say. But every year, there was a reason he hadn't started yet. Too busy with work. Waiting for inspiration. Not sure if the market was right. On the surface, it looked like he was being cautious and thoughtful. But years went by, and the book was still in his head instead of in the world. What he didn't realize was that there was never going to be a magical morning when all the lights turned green and everything in his life was perfectly aligned for him to start. That day doesn't come. The right time is a myth because life doesn't stop being messy. Bills still come. Emergencies still happen. Your schedule will always be full. Your doubts will always whisper in your ear. If you're waiting for perfect conditions, you'll be waiting forever. As author Hugh Laurie once said, "It's a terrible thing, I think, in life to wait until you're ready." I have this feeling now that actually, no one is ever ready to do anything. The truth is, most of us use the idea of the right time as a hiding place. It gives us permission to stay where we are while pretending we're planning for something greater. It feels better to say, "I'm not ready yet," than to admit, "I'm scared to fail." But that fear doesn't disappear with time, it grows. The longer you wait, the heavier the leap feels. Think about a rocket. It doesn't wait for perfect weather to launch. If it did, it might never leave the ground. Engineers pick a window. Conditions may not be flawless, but they are good enough, and they launch anyway. Why? Because they know that once it's moving, adjustments can be made mid-flight. Your dreams work the same way. You don't need perfect clarity to begin, you just need to start moving. Momentum will teach you more than waiting ever will. I remember when I started my first business. I kept telling myself I'd launch when I had more savings. When I'd learn just a little bit more. When I had a perfect plan. But that list kept growing. There was always another thing I needed before I could start. One day, a mentor looked me in the eye and said, "If you wait until you're ready, you'll still be here in 5 years, talking about the same idea." That hit me hard. I realized I was waiting for fear to vanish before taking action, not understanding that action is what dissolves fear. And here's the kicker, the right time never announces itself. You don't wake up one morning with a flashing sign that says, "Now. This is it." In fact, when the moment to start arrives, it often feels inconvenient. It arrives in the middle of chaos. It arrives when your hands are already full. That's because opportunities don't care about your calendar, they care about your willingness. There's another danger to waiting. Life changes faster than you think. That thing you're dreaming about? It has an expiration date. Not because it will stop being possible, but because you will change. Your energy will shift. Your priorities will rearrange themselves. And the version of you who has that specific fire inside might not be around forever. Every day you wait, you risk losing the spark that made you want it in the first place. I think of a woman I knew, Marissa, who always wanted to travel. She had maps on her walls, Pinterest boards of dream destinations, travel blogs bookmarked. But she kept saying, "When the kids are grown, when the house is paid off, when I retire." By the time she was financially ready, her health made it difficult to walk long distances, let alone climb mountains or explore cities on foot. She still traveled, but she admitted to me once, "I wish I hadn't waited so long. I thought I was being smart, but really, I was just postponing my life." The idea of the right time seduces us because it feels safe. It's a soft, comfortable delay. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Starting before you feel ready is where the magic happens. That's where resilience is built. That's where you learn, adapt, and discover things you never could have from the safety of planning. Starting doesn't mean you throw caution to the wind. It means you stop letting the pursuit of perfect conditions become your excuse. You prepare as best you can with what you have, and then you leap. You embrace the mess, the uncertainty, the inevitable mistakes, because those are not signs of failure, they are signs that you're in motion. I once heard someone describe waiting for the right time like waiting for a wave to stop moving before you jump in. If you stand on the shore waiting for the water to become perfectly still, you'll be there forever. But if you dive in while it's moving, yes, it's a little chaotic at first, but you find your rhythm, and before you know it, you're swimming. The same goes for every big dream, every major life change, every leap you want to take. The right time is not a date on the calendar, it's a decision. It's the moment you choose to stop postponing and start participating. And the moment you do, you'll realize that the conditions you thought you needed weren't necessary at all. They were just a story your fear told you to keep you still. So if you're telling yourself you'll start when things are better or when you're ready, I'll tell you what no one told me. There is no better time than the messy, imperfect, inconvenient now. Because now is all you ever really have. And the people who build the lives they want aren't the ones who waited for the right time. They're the ones who started while it still felt wrong, and discovered along the way that it was exactly right. How letting go of your old self creates space for strength and confidence. Letting go of your old self isn't a gentle, graceful act, it's a shedding. And shedding always feels strange at first, because it means stepping out of a version of you that's been with you for years, maybe decades. That old self might have been shaped by survival, by habits you learned young, by fears you carried quietly. It might even have been the part of you that kept you safe through some of the hardest chapters of your life. But here's the thing, what once protected you can eventually start to confine you. We like to think that strength and confidence come from adding things, new skills, new knowledge, new habits. But just as often, they come from subtraction. They come from clearing out the patterns, beliefs, and identities that no longer serve who you're becoming. Imagine a closet packed so tightly that you can barely fit another hanger inside. It doesn't matter how many beautiful new clothes you buy, if you don't make space, nothing new can truly live there. Your life works the same way. I knew a woman named Lila who had spent years telling herself she was shy. As a child, that belief kept her safe from attention she didn't want. As a teenager, it gave her a reason to avoid social risks. But in her 30s, she realized that label, shy, wasn't truth anymore, it was a story she had outgrown but never stopped telling. And as long as she clung to it, she carried herself small, spoke softly, and stepped back when she wanted to step forward. Letting go of that old identity wasn't about suddenly becoming extroverted, it was about no longer letting a past version of herself write the rules for her present. When you release the old self, you're not abandoning who you are, you're simply choosing to stop dragging outdated baggage into your future. It's like a snake shedding its skin. The old skin isn't bad, it served its purpose. But if the snake doesn't release it, it can't grow. And growth is exactly what creates strength and confidence, because both require space to breathe. Of course, letting go is uncomfortable. It's disorienting to wake up and realize you're no longer the person who reacts with anger to criticism, or the person who avoids eye contact in meetings, or the person who says yes to everything just to avoid conflict. There's an odd in-between phase where you're not quite the old you, but you're not yet the new you either. This is where doubt tries to creep in. You'll wonder if you're losing yourself. But you're not. You're finding yourself beneath the layers you've been carrying. Strength doesn't show up fully formed, it grows in the space left behind when fear or insecurity moves out. Think of it like clearing a garden of weeds. At first, it just looks empty and bare. But over time, with sunlight and water, something healthier takes root. The same is true for confidence. When you let go of the part of you that second-guessed every decision, you create space for self-trust to take its place. When you release the part of you that needed everyone's approval, you create space for self-assurance to bloom. I remember when I had to let go of the people-pleaser version of myself. For years, I thought my value came from making others happy, from never rocking the boat. It was exhausting. Every decision ran through the filter of what will they think? But there came a moment where I realized I was living a life I didn't even choose. It was a life built from the preferences and expectations of others. Letting go meant risking disapproval. It meant saying no more often. It meant losing some relationships that were built on the old, compliant version of me. But the space that opened up was priceless. It filled with energy, authenticity, and a quiet kind of strength I had never felt before. And here's the unexpected part. Letting go of the old you often reveals abilities you didn't even know you had. When you stop telling yourself you're bad with money, you might discover you have a natural talent for managing it. When you release the identity of I'm not a leader, you might step into situations where people instinctively look to you for guidance. Strength and confidence don't just appear out of nowhere, they've been there all along, but the old self was crowding them out. The hardest part is trusting the gap, the period between who you were and who you're becoming. It feels uncertain because the old habits are familiar, even if they are not healthy. It's tempting to slip back into them just for the comfort of the known. But if you can hold steady in that space, resisting the urge to fill it too quickly, you'll watch yourself transform. You'll see that strength isn't about being unshakable from the start, it's about learning that you can bend without breaking. And confidence isn't about always knowing what to do, it's about trusting yourself enough to figure it out as you go. Sometimes, people around you will resist your changes. They might say, "You've changed," like it's a bad thing. That's because your old self was part of the script they were comfortable with. But you're not here to keep playing a role that no longer fits. And if they can't adapt to the new you, that's part of the shedding, too. Every time you let go of an old piece of yourself, you step into a little more freedom. And freedom is the foundation of both strength and confidence. It's not about becoming someone entirely different, it's about becoming more of yourself. The self that's lighter, stronger, and unafraid to take up space. And while the act of letting go might feel like loss at first, what fills the space will make you wonder why you carried that old version of yourself for so long. Because the truth is, the new space isn't empty, it's an open door. And what walks through that door is the strongest, most confident version of you that's been waiting patiently for the room to finally breathe. And the single moment when real transformation begins. Real transformation doesn't creep in quietly. It doesn't politely knock on your door and wait to be invited. It comes in a single, piercing moment that slices through the noise of your life and whispers, "No," demands, "This is it. No more." Sometimes, that moment arrives softly, like a whisper you almost miss. You're sitting in your car after another exhausting day at a job you secretly resent, staring at the steering wheel, and something inside you breaks, not in a way that destroys you, but in a way that cracks open the truth. Or maybe you're in the middle of a conversation, smiling and nodding like you always do, when a sudden wave of clarity washes over you. "I can't keep living like this." Other times, that moment comes like a storm. A breakup that strips away the comfort you were clinging to. A health scare that makes you realize your time isn't infinite. A sudden loss that rips the blinders from your eyes and forces you to see what really matters. It's not always gentle, and it's rarely convenient, but it is always, always, the start of something irreversible. That single moment is when the excuses die. Not because they suddenly stop being available, but because you no longer believe them. You've told yourself for years that you'll start when the timing is better, or when you have more money, or when you feel ready. But in that instant, you see those words for what they are, a shield you've been hiding behind. And when the shield drops, you feel both naked and free. It's a strange kind of clarity, because nothing external may have changed yet. The bills are still there. The job still demands your time. The people around you are still playing by the same rules. But you are no longer the same. Something inside has shifted so deeply that going back is no longer an option. I remember hearing a man talk about the day he quit drinking. He said it wasn't his worst night, but it was the night he finally looked in the mirror and saw his own eyes staring back at him, not the tired, hollow eyes of someone surviving, but the eyes of someone who suddenly remembered who he was meant to be. That was the moment. No applause, no ceremony, just an inner click that told him, from here on out, everything changes. These moments are often born from pain, but they can also come from love, from awe, from an overwhelming sense that life has more for you than what you've been settling for. You might be standing on a mountaintop at sunrise, feeling so small and yet so infinite, and realize you've been living at half your capacity. Or you might be holding your newborn child and swear silently to become the version of yourself they can look up to. The power of that moment is not in its drama, it's in its decision. Transformation doesn't truly begin when you read another self-help book or make another vision board. It begins when you decide, completely, without loopholes, that the old way ends now. Even if you don't have all the answers. Even if you're terrified. Even if nothing around you supports the choice yet. And the funny thing? That decision can be made in less than a second. It's the point where your inner voice, the one you've been ignoring, becomes louder than your fear. You can feel it in your body, like your chest has more room, like your spine suddenly straightens, like the air feels different. It's not that life instantly becomes easy, but from that moment on, your compass is set. But here's the truth no one likes to admit. Many people miss that moment. They feel it, and then they smother it with distractions. They tell themselves it was just a mood, just a thought, just a passing feeling. They bury it under routine, hoping it'll come back later when it's more convenient. But that moment isn't patient, it's an open door that won't stay open forever. If you've ever had one of those moments, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The sudden awareness. The way the noise of life fades for just a breath. The way your excuses feel flimsy, like paper walls you could push through with one hand. That's the moment to move. To say yes. To take the first step, however small, while the fire is still hot. And here's the beautiful part. Once you act on it, you'll never see yourself the same way again. You'll start to trust yourself, not because you're perfect, but because you listened when it mattered most. You proved to yourself that when the moment came, you didn't look away. You didn't hide. You stepped forward. That's when real transformation begins, not when life hands you a perfect plan, but in the exact second you decide you're done waiting for permission. So here we are. You've seen the truth hiding behind your excuses. You've felt the pull of the future calling your name. And you've learned that nothing changes until you do. Let the old self die. Let the version of you that was built on fear, on playing small, on staying comfortable, finally take its last breath. And in that space, let something new rise. A self that doesn't ask for permission. A self that trusts the unknown. A self that knows, deep down, that the life you dream of is already reaching for you. This is not about waiting for the right time. It's about deciding that this is the time. Because if not now, then when? If not you, then who? Walk out of this moment with your head high, not because everything is fixed, but because you've chosen the path where you can't go back. The old you got you here. The true you will take you further than you ever imagined. And one day, you'll look back, not with regret for what you left behind, but with gratitude that you were brave enough to step into who you were always meant to be. So take the step. Close the door. Burn the bridge. And walk, no, run, into the life that's been waiting for you all along.